Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, please. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Lenahan? Here. Mrs. Eichhorn? Here. Mr. Gemperlein?
Here.
Okay, I'm going to approve the minutes for May 17th.
I will second that.
Mrs. Eichhorn? Yes. Mrs. Lenahan? Yes. Mr. Gemperlein?
Yes.
And I'm going to approve the minutes for June 3rd. Second. Mr. Gemperlein?
Yes.
Mrs. Eichhorn?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenahan? Yes. Just before we start, I just want to make sure there's nobody besides Mr. Savage and Ms. Tate that wanted to make a public comment. Thank you. All right. Okay. We're gonna.
I'm sorry.
I was going to make a comment about the race, the park waiver agenda.
Okay. Well, would you like to do that now?
I can.
Okay. Come on up. You can just tell us your name.
My name is Tanner Sutton. I live at 3888 Woodward Place Drive. The waiver of the park fee for the Patriots 5 County 4th would really allow us to hit the ground running in terms of the expenses for the race, and it would ensure that almost all of the race admissions would go straight back to the Reed High School cross country team. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll discuss that in a minute, okay? Go through the public comment. Mr. Tunis, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. This is a very trivial matter, but one that to me is important. The image of our township is, we're lucky, we're blessed. It's a great image. And I think one of the most important parts of our image, at least visually, is the portal gateway as you come up Sunlight Parkway with the metal horses and the gates. And I've noticed for the past year that the fencing around the horses is in not very good shape in terms of it needs paint. And I would just ask the trustees to have someone on staff take a look at whether or not we need a fresh coat of paint to bring that symbol of our community back up to standards fitting the community.
Thanks. It's not trivial because it's very important and near and dear to my heart. So we also are working on the lighting, right?
It's because of the rain.
Yeah. The lighting has been out for months and months and months and months. So on the horses. So we had talked about that before you arrived, Mike, months and months ago. So.
Yeah, we've actually been in the process of securing the permits to add the electric. Everything's in place, and we'll be moving forward with that here shortly. So it's kind of neat to see that progress go through.
And painting the fence.
I've not talked to anybody about painting that, but I just put it on my list, and we'll follow up with that here shortly.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Andrew Savage.
Thank you. Andrew Savage, 332 Tree Haven Avenue. I'd like to address something I think is far less trivial. Not that is trivial. I certainly think our community looks nice, especially because I live down there. So I would like to address this board in its discussion to limit the use of the township hall. As a citizen, I'm concerned that this is yet another erosion of our First Amendment rights, and more significantly, that's being used as a tool of political power. In our government, there are times when the rights of citizens will be limited due to the issues of the day. We have all experienced the intrusive nature of security at our nation's airports following the 9/11 attacks, and the restrictions on firearms for devices and situations our forefathers could never have dreamed of. I am not here to argue the effectiveness or legitimacy of these restrictions, but rather that every time a right is further restricted, It is a weighty decision with lasting effects. These rights should be considered as sacred, and the infringement of them, no matter how small, should only be pursued in the face of overwhelming benefit to the people that cherish these rights. At the last meeting, trustees Gemperline and Lenahan spoke of what they felt was a dangerous situation when the SOS group used the Township Hall. No details of the risks were presented to the constituents except that a food truck was present. It would be an egregious overreach to restrict the use of public land for peaceable assembly over a food truck or any other minor infraction. And because of this, I believe this has little or nothing to do with safety. This further restriction of First Amendment rights is about suppression of the voices of residents. This is clear to any resident who has waited in that hall for 71 minutes during an unscheduled executive session, listened to the asinine rules of conduct before being allowed to speak at a meeting, and who have been threatened with legal action for signing the SOS removal for cause petition by our own elected officials. I am certain these trustees will argue that the residents have been misled or misinformed. The message they will send is that we don't know the whole truth. Yet when direct questions are asked of them, the response is deflections, insults, or silence. These are classic gaslighting techniques that have proven themselves to be effective in abusive situations, in relationships for generations. But we are not the meek and unconfident victims this technique works on, and it's frankly insulting that it persists. They will also state that it is within their ability to make these restrictions. In this, I have no doubt. But the question I present is not, can we? It is, should we? And I assure you, we should not. If the Township Hall is further restricted, it will be your indelible mark on the erosion of freedom that will long outlast your political career. To move forward with a restriction will show everyone that your concern does not lie with the citizens, the values of your community, or political party, but instead only with yourselves. I cannot think of anything more un-American than a leader who is willing to tread upon liberty for personal gain. The ease in which this discussion was considered is a horrible irony for the namesake of our community. Certain statements of those who built this country have become a part of the American
That's
context.
3 minutes and seconds.
As Patrick Henry's "Give me liberty or give me death" and Benjamin Franklin's
So I'm gonna ask you to wrap up.
"Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." I ask this board, how will history remember your leadership at this contentious moment? Will you be described as a stalwart of liberty or as a stain in the progress of time? Thank you.
That was a lot, so I'm going to I tried to take some notes on it. So what Mr. Savage is referring to is that we were discussing at staff's request, what would be the best way to address the issues that we were having. Some of the issues that we were having was that a particular group would violate the rules of the contract when you're renting the space. Some of the rules, they wouldn't leave when they were supposed to leave. Kathy Buer felt that they presented a very hostile work environment to her. She noted some of the situations where they refused to leave and actually handled people. Another situation was where, without permission, they had food trucks come into the government parking lot during baseball games, and private citizens coming in and out of the fire bays. So it was brought to our attention by staff, and the prosecutor's office initial reaction was, you just can't have that. The township's in a very libelous position. If a child came running across to the food truck, and this is where emergency vehicles are arriving and departing from. We had a 10-year-old child that was grabbed and said, "Who are you going to vote for?" who was here to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So we've had some egregious behavior, and we had a discussion in our last meeting on what's the best way to address this. For me, putting citizen safety first is critical. To suggest that it's a right of the citizens to rent this hall is completely inaccurate. That is not a right. That is a privilege that this township does allow. Many townships do not. They do not allow that. In fact, we found a number of townships that only allow township halls to be used for government meetings. So it is not a right, it is a privilege. And furthermore, it's not a right to violate the rules of the contract. We've had them actually schedule time to be here, and then the number one thing in the contract is that the person who scheduled it has to be here, and they haven't been here. So what we did was open a discussion on how we would like to address that. One of the things that we came up with, it seems that this particular group likes to meet before trustee meetings. And so we said, well, how about if we just don't rent the hall on days of any government meetings so that we can carry out the meeting, we don't have to have our employees get pushed around and told that they're not going to leave, they're not going to adhere to the terms of the contract. So we thought that that was one opportunity. No resolution has been passed at this time. However, I believe our administrator did start looking into it, and that's when he found that there are a number of townships that the hall is not rented out. And so it is not a right. And for us, it is not an egregious violation of your rights because it's not your right in the first place. So is there any more you wanted to add on that or any suggestions?
Yeah, again, I think what's the board is looking for is a well-defined policy that delineates what it can be used for and what are the purposes of that. What I've been understanding is that it has not been used for those purposes and has fallen outside of the realm within the agreement of the contract that was signed. I think what's important to note is that whatever the board decides, that each individual is held to those specific standards, whatever, regardless of what that is.
Yeah, so that's kind of some background on that. And so we're trying to come up with a solution that protects the safety of residents. Sadly, we were told by the prosecutor's office, and I don't know how much truth there is to it, that we can't enforce the rules, which is an interesting response from a prosecutor's office, that we can't enforce the guidelines of a contract. So it's still being discussed. However, I would feel that the township's in a very libelous position. I think people would concur with that. When private citizens are running around in the bays where we have emergency vehicles that have to come and go, not only can they get hurt, but it slows down our guys when somebody else needs them. We can't have that. We don't want to have kids running back and forth in this parking lot. We don't want to have private citizens interfering with our safety services. So we'll continue to discuss it, but thank you.
I believe you will further erode bit by bit on the shoulders of those in front of you personal liberties, civil liberties.
Okay, and I respectfully disagree, but that's okay. That's the beauty of, sir, it's not your right. It's already been established. It's not your right. But thank you.
We'll use it for your own personal gains to suppress one group on one day.
But I do think that if our concern is kids running here, then we're going to have to address the parking lot, because this parking lot is full of the baseball players. So if that's truly the concern, then this is something else we'll need to look at.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we don't encourage the kids to run back and forth by putting, clowns and, a circus in the front.
Oh, I didn't know there was a circus there.
Well, I would call it a circus. When
food truck is
when
a
two
circus.
food trucks show up uninvited without a permit,
That's a circus.
that is completely unacceptable, and I don't think anybody in this room would disagree. Okay, all right, Rachel Tate.
I disagree.
Okay, thank you. Rachel Tate.
Hi, my name is Rachel Tate. I live at 1424 Jewett Road. I'm here to discuss Jewett Road, which was on the agenda like around 12:15 today, but it's not. So, quickly, it's closed. Whenever it closes, I call Liberty Township to find out exactly what's happening. Then I usually have to call Delaware County Engineer. I talked with Mike today about this, or not today, I'm sorry, yesterday or the day before. to make sure that there's a traffic officer at the corner of 315 and Jewett Road, especially when we are stuck and you are forced out onto 315. It's fine if you're a seasoned driver, although you still pray very hard before you take that turn left. Our 16-year-old had to take it today. I do not like the forced position, but I also really don't like that there's no one there to help us out. Now, the theory on that is that there's not enough Jewett traffic, which I agree, it's smaller because the road is closed. However, turning out today, going left onto 315, those road close signs were so close, anyone coming south on 315, going onto Jewett because they live on Jewett, would have run right into it. And our son, I texted him, and I actually shared with Shira quickly today because I have her cell phone number, and it's easily accessible when I couldn't get a hold of Liberty Township Road, who I've talked to, and they're awesome. They're wonderful to work with. I just want to say that first. I'm like, that sign's going to cause an accident, and it was moved. It got taken care of. But it's the thought process that's frustrating residents that live there, that it's always an issue, and I'm actually the one always calling to say, hey, have you lined up police care on any project on Jewett to help anyone stay safe? And because it's summer and we do have drivers, it's exceptionally dangerous. And right now, because no traffic's going out on Jewett, from Jewett, and no one's going on Jewett, coming north from 315, no one's actually stopping to let you out, which is usually the hope of how you get out of there. When I talked to Delaware County Sheriff, the woman I spoke to said, I drove it once and haven't driven it again. A person at Delaware County Sheriff also said they've received 2 calls in 1 week in regards to that intersection. I know we've talked about roundabouts, lights. I offered to pay for stop signs. I think blinking stop signs would be better than nothing right now. I just hope that we can work together with, and I know it's Delaware County, Liberty Township, and ODOT to fix it. It's not that complicated. We don't need another study. You can talk to Liberty Township Road Crew and they'll tell you they hate that corner. It's the most dangerous. It needs a solution to keep everyone safe. And I'm very happy to help be a part of that solution, but I can tell you it doesn't need a study, it just needs fixed.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Do you remember last year when we had the police out there?
Yes, and it was Tyler Run, elementary school's resource officer, and I was like, get off the road, we need you at Tyler Run. We don't need you at 315 Jewett.
But the gentleman that, and I know there was different police officers on there that was directing traffic.
Yes.
Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I thought the consensus after that is that it made it worse.
That having traffic, I think that I don't think it made it worse. It helped us get out.
Okay.
It made it worse for people on 315, especially if you're not paying attention going north or south to anyone turning on or off of 315.
I just remember there being longer backups. I remember us trying that for a few days, and then I remember stopping it because, and what I'm saying to you is I know we need to look at other solutions. I'm just not so sure that solution worked when we had that. So definitely discussion more, but I didn't know what your recollection was from it. But that's how I remembered it.
Anytime we have anything on Jewett Road, and I've lived there for 5 years, and we love where we live, but anytime there's anything, there's always a backup, whether it's on 315 or Jewett, which is fine. I think patience is a virtue we've very much lost here, especially when it comes to road work. I just remember being able to get help getting out. I don't remember a backup coming in. And now you have people just stopping to let people in and out, which is even
Dangerous,
worse,
yeah,
because there's no warning it's coming.
Well, I know that Jewett, the residents of Jewett Road have been extremely patient. There's been project after project the last 4 years. The frustration is very much valid, but the good thing is the improvements that have been made, I know, have helped considerably. And
Yes, and having it paved, like I know paving's coming up, I know the railroad tracks are coming up, it's just making sure it's safe. Because again, we have a 16-year-old that's taking that turn, and it's not my favorite as a mom. And I'm a children's ministry director, and I'm like, any kid that's driving that, or that's an adult not paying attention, is going to eventually lose their life. And that would be bad. But I do appreciate Liberty Township help.
Have there been any discussions on this particular road closure as to safety with the county? Have they reached out at all?
There's been a lot of questions about the heavy traffic with 315. I don't know that anybody has a reasonable solution short term for this. A lot of times it depends who you're asking, who you're talking to, whether or not that traffic flow does if an officer there would help, and what other solutions would be available to it. What has been discussed is if there's work closer to the intersection, having the contractor actually have flaggers there for that. But being pushed further back, the thought has been that having an officer would create a bigger issue as it did in the past. From most people what I talked to about it. The other side of that is that our road guys have done an exceptional job trying to keep that road open and keeping that communicated to everybody. I mean, I think maybe that might be something that we could work on as well, to try to get more communication out as far as where it's going to be closed, et cetera, et cetera. I know with this closure, we're trying to get so much accomplished at one time in the shortest period of time that you only have a choice to go one direction or the other, depending on where you're coming from. So that in and of itself creates a little bit of an issue, but we could have taken it and done it in a longer period of time. We're choosing to do it in a shorter period of time to get it done more quickly.
So this is supposed to be done on the 21st, right? This particular closure?
Yes.
I was told Wednesday.
Yeah, well, depending on the weather, and that's the caveat across the board, is to make sure, I mean, obviously, we're supposed to have rain all week, and it's supposed to be just raining, so that could delay it. Today they're on schedule. They're hoping to be able to bring the concrete in for those culverts on Wednesday. Once that's over, then they'll be able to put it's set up, they'll have the metal plates down so that traffic will be opened up to that area.
Oh, that's.
I mean, it's open now. I drove here.
Yeah, tonight, temporarily, it was gonna be open this evening.
The big problem is, and I want this to be very clear, we appreciate our tax dollars going to improvements, especially on the road we live on. What we don't appreciate is when we didn't really know where anything was closing, I had to call, and that's fine, I found out, but it should, again, we kind of get we're paying for this. And then the second part is, it's not set up already. And if you talk to the house owner that lives on the corner, in the house that was built 1817, he's just waiting for someone to lose their lives, and he has been the whole time he's lived there. Nothing's ever been done. So it's like, who's gonna do it? Who's gonna get it off the list, make it safe, and make it a non-discussion? Because if not, I have to come here, you have to listen every single time. And it's really not complicated.
Yeah, I know that it's a topic of discussion, has been for quite some time, and what are the possibilities of making that a safer intersection? Is it roundabout, traffic circle, light, stops, whatever. So again, there's not a short-term solution at this point outside of doing what we can do, but again, researching and working with ODOT, the county, and the township to try to come up with a solution for that.
Is anyone actually pushing it, I guess, is the next question?
I'm going to have to claim ignorance on that one because this is my third week here and I don't
Right.
know. So again, this is one of those things that I've been, Jewett Road has kind of blew up in our world, at least my world in the office this last couple of weeks. So, but I know that the trustees this is something that's important to them.
I think the long-term solution has been focused on more than the short-term, so we need to.
Meanwhile, really risky.
Right, which we know the long-term is the roundabout drawings, from my understanding, the county, but the short-term we need to revisit.
I agree, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry we can't do better for you tonight. Okay, so, does it? I don't know. Okay, can we discuss the request to forego the fees on the park? Does anybody want to start with that discussion?
This is the concern that I'm trying to think through, because of course we are always very helpful to the high school students we want to help. The problem that we have is that the $250 truly covers the expenses of our parks. And every time we have a 5K, it's for a good cause. Kathy leaned over and said, and I don't know if this is legal, we'd have to find out, so I gotta find out if it's legal. But kind of like what sometimes the Cub Scouts do you think the cross-country team would be willing to maybe help paint the fence and we would waive it?
I can check with them. We do a lot of service projects, so they might.
I don't know if that would interest us, but it wouldn't be just waiving it, and it would, something they worked for and they got.
Yeah, that's a creative solution. And Shira's right, it's so hard to waive because every group that does a 5K, it's charitable. So, and there's always a donation, and then it's actually then the taxpayers making a forced donation because it costs that much to clean it up and do everything like that. So I think that's a creative solution. Maybe if you want to ask your group about a creative solution that they could come up with, we will check into the legalities of it because we are.
Don't want to promise anything and then get us all in
We are
trouble.
creatures of statute and we have to follow statute. The good news is if there's nothing out there about it, then we're good. If there is something about it, then we have to adhere to the statute.
But that's pretty
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'll check with them, I'll check with Coach Mills, I'll see if he has any ideas, and then, can I just call you guys?
Yes, you can call the office.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm sorry we can't do that for you.
No, I
It's just
understand,
kind
yeah.
of hard because then everybody would
Yeah,
expect it.
thank you.
But let's figure out something.
Thanks for coming in. All right. Okay. Okay. We're going to go to resolution 19061701. Anything, Nancy? Okay. Okay, I'll move to approve resolution 19061701.
Second?
Purchase orders and blanket certificates.
Mr. Gemperline?
Yes.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenahan?
Yes. Move to approve resolution 19061702, accepting 2019 bills, warrants, and charges.
Second.
Mrs. Lenahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Mr. Gemperline?
Yes.
Resolution 190617-03, authorizing an expenditure for the purchase and installation of Your Speed flashing signs at Old Sawmill and Presidential. They'll also be at Adams. This is to purchase 4 of those signs and 2 flashing stop signs.
Okay, move to approve resolution 19061703.
I'll second.
Okay,
Nancy, did you talk with Andy about this for the money? We have-
yes.
Oh, yeah.
We've got the money? Okay.
Okay, so we've had a lot of accidents at these intersections, and we feel that we got to try something to reduce the number of accidents. So I feel that it's in the best interest to go ahead and give these signs a shot. Just anything to try to stop the continued accidents. We use these in our neighborhood, and were they effective, Greg, at reducing speed? Yeah.
They're always speeders. 5%.
I mean, reminded.
And this is the short-term solution that we discussed with Doug Riedel. Long-term, again, we'll be looking at trying to get a grant for our possibly roundabouts. And also, if we are granted, we'll be able to move those your speed signs somewhere else, so it won't be wasted money.
They can go to Jewett for $3.15. Look, right there, it's no extra spending.
I will tell you, the thing that gets tricky about that
Is
spot
what?
is we fall under all of these rules because it's a very protected area. What is it? It's the scenic byway, so it falls under the statutes of the scenic byway, and it seems like I'm not allowed to do
There's no way
much.
you get a roundabout on a historic property with a corner, so go with the flashing stop sign.
Hang on.
Super great, write it down, we'll use it when you're done.
It's definitely on the list of things that
Take it easy.
have been discussed, for sure. Okay, so go ahead and take the vote on 3.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Mr. Gemperline?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenahan?
Yes.
Resolution 19061704, approving expenditure for emergency paving project on Brighton Place, Hastings Lane. And this came about on an inspection, getting ready to do the 2019 paving project, sorry. There was a failure on the road and there was a sinkhole.
Yeah, very large sinkhole.
Okay, move to approve resolution 19061704.
Second.
You know, the good news is we are slowly but surely getting through all these roads. Some of the older roads in the township had different specifications than the newer roads. And when we go to repair them, they just literally cave in and then there's additional expenditure. The good news is we have the money to do it, so that's what's happening throughout Wedgewood. It tends to happen, the older roads. The new roads, we won't see that.
Mrs. Lenihan?
Yes.
Mr. Gemperle?
Yes.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Resolution 19061705, approving a short-term contract with Clarity for IT services.
Move to approve resolution 19061705.
Second.
Mine doesn't have the amount.
Yeah, with the term.
Okay.
I didn't know if we were going to do that.
As needed? I mean, because we don't really know. What would you like it to say?
Well, the discussion that Mike and I had was, if we look back to the bid that we had put in last year in 2018, is just moving forward with what was in our proposal for that short-term period.
Okay, so as needed, short term as needed? So
Well,
is it
no,
like-
it was, so we're putting a service contract in place with the 60-day out, but using the rates that were established in that RFP submission back in 2018.
So essentially what's going to happen is the rates will stay the same, but because we don't know what period of time that we're working with the cut over to the county, we find ourselves in an awkward position that some of our servers are relatively old. So we stand a chance of having issues without that stopgap measure in place. So if we could keep a contract in place during that period of time, and we're using the term short term because we really don't know what that term is going to be at this point as we cut over to the county. The Board of Commissioners, I understand, will be voting on that resolution here shortly. But even so, we were planning for the end of June, early July, but it looks like it's going to be much later than that at this point. Jason and I discussed a 60-day written opt-out, so where we could cancel that at that time. Working with Clarity has been exceptionally helpful to all of us as a township, so I think this would be something I would recommend just because of the issues with the fire department and having the older servers that are in place and the information on. We want to make certain that those are secured.
So we're saying for the rest of the year with the 60-day out, is that how we're running it?
We're saying until the end of December of 2019 of this year, with the understanding that there's a very strong possibility that it'll be prior to that. Once the resolution is voted on by the Board of Commissioners, we'll have a much better idea of what that timeline is going to be. But at this point, we just don't know, which is kind of makes things a little more sticky and difficult.
But we know it's not in a few weeks, like what we talked
Correct,
about months. So
correct.
it's safe for at least it's going to be 4 months, which would give us the 60-day buffer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was hopeful to say 3 months, but I know that we're going to have to do some work within our building itself to mount new switches, and working with contractor and the building owner to get those in might even have another delay. So again, I'm hoping for 3 months, but you know how things go. It's probably going to be like 4.
Okay, do we need to fill in this blank, Mike, or do we have what, I looked in the contract and all I saw was a possible 5% increase.
I would say you could put short-term through December 31st, 2019 with a 60-day termination clause.
Mike, do you have that service
In the amount of,
that I gave you? Because that has the,
Yeah, we have that here with us. That has that.
that's what I'm saying, it's attached, so can we just reference?
Yes. The master services agreement.
As laid out, as detailed in the master services.
Approve the attached short-term contract through the month of December, or through December 31st, 2019. I'm looking at you for.
Yes, through December
31st,
2019.
And that's the same one that was reviewed before.
19 with the
It would
two.
be the same proposal that was reviewed last year, and extending it to 2019, or the end of 2019. And we'll know more in the months to come. We've reached out to the county quite a bit to try to get a timeline from them, because we want to just do a very general handover, and we're not in a position to be able to do that yet.
Okay.
So they may tell us sooner, they may tell us later. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
So in the amount of, why do we need to have that there, or since the
I think you'd strike the amount off and just say reference the.
Didn't I see on there it was like 1,500 a month?
Yeah, so I believe in the service addendum, Mike, if you have that, Frank, I don't have a copy in front of me.
3,920.56.
Right, which includes all the infrastructure, the user cares, all the licensing that is consumed by the township right now for backhoes and Office 365, all rolls into that number.
39.56,
39.20
39.20,
and 56 cents.
56.
So I think it's more succinct to say that this is just an extension of that Clarity has been very gracious to extend to us through this time without having a contract in place. So again, this is just carrying on with what we're already doing with Clarity until we get this cut over in place.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and add the words that we just talked about through December 31st, 2019 with the 2-month out clause in the amount of $3,920.56 per month. Does that sound accurate?
Correct.
Okay. I want to thank you. I thanked you personally. I will thank you publicly for your patience with us and for continuing to be a fair vendor, even in light of the fact that you know that we're making a transition. That is very commendable. Thank you.
Did we approve this yet?
We haven't taken a vote.
Mr. Geschlerlein?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Resolution 190617-06, authorizing an expenditure for township mailer.
Move to approve resolution 19061706.
I will second.
It doesn't match my agenda.
And I don't know that this is in the budget.
The resolution we passed a resolution in December of 2018, and it was resolution 18-1203-11, and that was to authorize $3,000 expenditure for communications intern.
Okay.
So I put that on there if you're going to take that and move that to this resolution, so we don't have that $3,000 hanging out there. You don't have to do that.
Okay.
I just didn't know if you needed that on.
So just to clarify the agenda, resolution 6 is authorizing expenditure for a township mailer.
I don't have $10,000 in the budget.
Okay. What do you have?
Must be about 3, if that's what we passed a resolution for in December.
You mean you'd have to make an,
I'll have to make a change before we can sign this.
okay, that's okay with me.
You want it for 10,000?
Whatever is determined, I don't know.
Well, if that's what's here, I just have to adjust the budget to reflect that.
Okay, so can you do that after the fact? Or can we pass
I
it
can't
first
sign-
and have you do?
Well, is there a pending, is there something we need to mail out right this minute?
No.
Okay, then I would rather wait.
Okay, and
I'll make the adjustment and then we can sign it.
okay, sounds good. All right, so I'll motion to table. Well, there's a motion, so, did it get a second?
I seconded
All right, so, we'll, I'll withdraw the motion with your approval to withdraw the second.
Second.
All right, and we'll table.
Motion to table.
Motion to table.
Is there a second?
I second it, yes.
Okay.
I should call the roll for the table.
Yes.
Mrs. Lenihan?
Yes.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Mr. Gemperling?
Yes.
Okay,
Before we go into this resolution, I'd like to make an motion to go into an executive session, which I apologize to everyone, and see if I can get a second. I don't know exactly what the Ohio Revised Code, but it would be for development. Can I get a second?
is there an Ohio Revised Code? that
There
allows
is
us
for
to go
economic
into
development. Let me
executive?
find it for you.
What's it for?
It's regarding Resolution 7 and talking with our administrator. I don't believe we've talked about this.
I'll second.
She's trying to
We
find
need
that,
a-
she's trying to find the code.
code.
And it won't take long. And I would, so not everyone has to leave, go in the computer room, I guess, that we did before, unless there's an office open.
For ORC 121, 22G. G8, which is to consider confidential information relating to economic development assistance or to negotiations with other subdivisions, political subdivisions. It lists a bunch of stuff, but it's the
That one.
Did we fulfill that?
yes, because this is about the pod and it's about
I'm
it's
just
about
trying to
this.
figure what part of that statute is okay.
The 121G8 would cover the economic development because this is the whole, it has to do with how they're developing the pod. So this service agreement or the development agreement has to do with the zoning and
All right, so
the maintenance, basically.
I don't mean to be difficult here, but you and Mike can do that. I'm going to steer clear of it because I don't know about that. I'm not confident about that. And I'm a-
Well, then if you want, I can just ask the questions in public and we can go from there. I'm fine with that.
I don't need any more trouble.
I'm fine with that. I'm more than happy to
to
ask those questions in public and we can work through those.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'll move to approve resolution 1906-1707.
Second.
Based on you reading this agreement, what are your thoughts?
Knowing what the intent was, I have a hard time finding where the actual pod exists. With the exception of the exhibit A, I have a hard time recognizing where we're defining this area.
The 17 acres, is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Are you talking about just it on the map, or are you talking about the path that's discussed within here?
The path that's discussed within it. Where does that lie within it? I don't know. That's the part I don't understand.
For some reason, it looks like that exhibit A did.
That Exhibit A didn't copy?
I've got blank pages.
Yeah. I can't read the Exhibit A either.
Yeah, mine says
Do you have-
exhibit A that's,
Do you have Exhibit A? Ours is just a little faint.
Thank you.
Can you walk us through this agreement? Here, would you like this back, and would you like to walk us through this agreement?
No, I've read it quite a bit, actually.
Okay.
My name is Laura Kovac. I'm here on behalf of the property owner. Exhibit A is the legal description, Exhibit B is the pod that identifies the location of the property in a more regional, like with a vicinity type of map, and you should be able, that should be in the exhibits in the back. And then Exhibit C, there's a red arrow to denote the future location of the path. I hope it's clear enough on there. Your
Laura,
copies.
you said the future location of,
The pathway, trail, future bike path or multi-use path. Does that
it's
come
black
through?
on our copy, but it's.
Oh, gotcha, all right.
It's an arrow. Do you see where that is?
Yeah, I'm happy to show you where that is.
This one right here.
You see it in
Yeah,
color?
no, I got it right there. Okay.
Oh, thanks. All right, so here, and this should be, what's the last page? Because, see, there you go.
Okay, there it is.
So the orientation is north and south. All right, so, yeah. I do. Do you see it?
I do know.
Okay.
Gotcha.
On Exhibit C.
So it's on the back side of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Going northward. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. It does help to have a color photo, right, with a red arrow.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
I did not receive this until, swear, but I have not received it into this final copy until, I don't know, a few hours ago. And so that's why I'm making sure that we all have a solid understanding of exactly what's in here and had time to read it, and be briefed by our administrator on it.
So I've been briefed by the lawyers on it, so I did have plenty of time to go over it and.
Which lawyers?
Peter Briggs.
Okay. And what did Peter say today?
Peter said it was usual, customary, satisfactory. Originally, there were some issues with it, and he got those resolved with Ms. Comack, I believe. So he felt very comfortable that it was satisfactory for the township's purposes.
Did he have things added to this or taken out?
Actually, just changed. Yes. There were some, initially, the developer was asking for certain things to be paid for by the township. Our lawyer felt that didn't serve the township well, and Ms. Comack adjusted it to put that expense onto the developer.
Does it talk about annexation in here?
Yes. We're going like this, because I think your microphone is there.
No, it doesn't work.
It does. I feel like it's supposed to happen. Yes, section 4, and then sections 5, little 5, little b. Yes. And that was a place where we were able to incorporate Pete Briggs's language as well.
So this is talking about, in this, the acquisition of that actual path.
Would you want to give me a particular section, because there is a discussion about a path where we have dedicated the area and shown that on the exhibit, if the township in the future plans to put in a path. So we've outlined that here.
And where did you say the other piece, so beyond 4, that it discuss annexation?
Yes, correct. So, page 6.
6? I do apologize. I just want to make sure before we pass something of this importance that.
Absolutely. I'm saying we had no problem answering there.
And it's not that I didn't know about this at all. I didn't. So it's not like it's like I've never, knew. But it's important for me to be able to see it in final form.
No, I completely understand. It also helps with the color.
At least these pages have color, so we're good.
Takes a
It's
thousand
just,
words,
yes,
that picture takes a
besides the
thousand.
imaginary text that's in the back.
What is the pod? I'm not familiar with it. Can you explain it a little more?
It's basically like a zoning overlay. So, for example, where Greif is. Around, where Greif is? Nope. So way up on High Street, right before you get to Cheshire Road on the left is a large commercial development. So that's actually the township. And so what we did up there was, we have our zoning, but then you can do an overlay for a particular area to meet specific needs of the community and the developer. So basically, our zoning board commission has worked with the developer to come up with an overlay for the area from like Home Road up to Hyatt's, around up in there. This particular section that we're discussing tonight is east of the Parkway. If you're familiar, right before you go over the Home Road Bridge as you're heading east, to the left you can see the railroad track down there. So that's the eastern border of this development, and then it comes, it goes westward, but shy of, there's an old house over there. That's the owner of that property, and Schottensteins are developing that area as well as up to Hyatt's. But to, just to meet the needs of today's buyers, our community, and the developer, we did an overlay for that area. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm very excited about it. Let's hope it.
Did the prosecutor's office look at this as well? Did the prosecutor's office look at this as well?
No, they have not.
We're just going to keep it with Peter for discussion.
Yeah, and Peter's representing us with another zoning issue. It was his firm that represented us on the overlay with Greif. Traditionally, the prosecutor's office does not represent us in zoning issues that are this complicated. So their office, their firm, Peter it's Brocious, and there's another name in Griggs. What is it?
Loveland, Brocious.
No, Loveland's not.
Johnson. Johnson.
Yeah, they did the pod, so Peter is familiar with what we did at Greif. He also was involved in the drafting of the CETA. So traditionally, we have used a zoning attorney when we're dealing with things of this nature.
Mrs. Lenahan?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I was given some stuff here ahead of this meeting, and I'm going to try to do what I was asked to do. And speaking of Peter, it was suggested we pass a resolution to retain Peter as needed for review and representation on zoning-related matters, because we have a lot of them going on right now. In fact, the sheriff knocked on my door this morning to give me a subpoena regarding one of the zoning issues. That was a surprise. So I'm going to make a motion to do a resolution. We'll call it Resolution 1906-1708. Am I doing this correctly? To retain Peter Griggs for as-needed review and representation on zoning matters. He has provided us an hourly rate, and we are very satisfied with. So this would be a resolution employing the township's attorneys on an annual basis for the year 2019. And that would be Brochus, Johnson, and Griggs.
Just through the year, calendar year 2019?
Yep, and we're just starting with an appropriated sum of $30,000. I cannot see us exceeding that or even coming near it. But since we're going to be using him, he's committed to an hourly rate of $225 and $205 for a senior associate and $180 per hour for an associate attorney, and $120 for a law clerk, and $105 for a legal assistant, which is very, I feel, a very good price. And this firm knows the history of everything. Not that you need to. I'm not condoning that at all.
So I'm gonna add 30,000 to the legal budget.
I mean, I'm proposing 30,000. I don't see us going anywhere near it. We can,
Because I don't.
if that's making your head spin, we can lower it.
No, it's not. I just want to make
Again.
sure I put enough or.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to feedback from anybody.
I think we absolutely need it.
Okay. Are you okay with the number?
I think we need to have further discussion on it.
I mean,
It's $30,000 and
do you want to make it a lesser number? We need to have Peter working, now.
He actually did a bunch of work already, correct?
Well, we've already
but if
passed
he's-
a resolution for that, but now we need to add to that. And I think, and we get an aggressive hourly rate when we make a commitment and partner with the law firm. So,
But I mean, I think that's the point. I mean, we already approved him looking at the pot agreement we just talked about?
I don't know exactly the terminology. I think it was just that we approved an expenditure for legal. I know we did one for legal, which would encompass that, and then one for zoning.
So is this the agreement, or you're just doing an amount?
Yeah, this is just, what I'm suggesting is we pass a resolution to retain Peter Griggs for zoning matters only, to represent us for zoning matters or zoning-related matters. And we can fill in, appropriate how much we want to have Nancy appropriate for that. Remembering every time we do this, she has to go in and appropriate funds. So I just wanted to get a substantial number so that we're not continually going in, appropriating and appropriating.
Well, I'm not against us having some legal representation for zoning. It's just I haven't talked to him any times. I think I'd like to talk to him a little bit more, and I would like to also see when we're talking about 30,000 is kind of how we're seeing that breakdown, because that's a considerable amount of money.
Well, how about if we lower the number then, and then you can talk to Peter, but we have to do something, because this is, we're working on this project, and
One of the,
he has to correspond with Laura.
if you don't mind, one of the issues in meeting with all the department heads, specifically with Ms. Mullenhour in the zoning department, she explained to me, as well as Judge Charles, that it's sometimes difficult getting things done and accomplished in a reasonable time frame because of finding the specialty within the zoning laws and the zoning application. It was highly recommended that from that department that would have somebody that would be the go-to, so to speak, on retainer, so in the event that they needed to contact them in a short period of time, they could, and be able to review that so we could maintain the timelines and still be able to work with the developers and the zoning, the BZAs, et cetera, so we can make those timelines. It was recommended by the zoning department, Ms. Mullenhour, that we work with Mr. Griggs in this because we've worked with him in the past, and he's represented the township very well.
And I will tell you, I think you'll be very pleased. He is very responsive to our needs.
Well, and I don't have a problem with having some zoning, but the fact of the matter is that when I came into office, years ago, at that time we had that type of setup, and it wasn't working because we were spending so much money and that was back in 2014, 15.
I agree.
So that was a concern of, I think maybe we swung it too much this way, and we need to come back more in the middle. But I guess too, and I'm just concerned too, why wasn't this then, if this was being talked about, if it was being recommended by Tracy, why wasn't this even on the agenda before, so we could have had some discussion beforehand?
Actually, I was talking with her this past week about that and meeting with her, got that information today. I didn't expect it to be able to get it on the agenda for today.
Okay. If we need to move forward and to help the zoning, that's fine, but I think we should start with 15,000, see how it goes, and then we can increase it from then, is what I would be most comfortable with.
That's fine. And, I agree. That was one of the first things, Shari, we did together, because when I couldn't get any midway before you were trustee. The one thing, though, that is different is there was no number. It was what it was spend, and it was a blank check. We were getting billed a ridiculous amount. There was nothing. So I'm fine with 15,000.
Doesn't cover much.
It won't. It'll go fast, but it'll, Shari,
It'll be one
meeting.
It'll be, I'm sorry, what did you say?
It'll be one meeting.
Well, we can come back though. I think we need to make sure that we just keep a handle on this so it doesn't.
I believe within the proposed document it is not to exceed this amount, and certainly once we exceed that or begin to reach that, keeping it close tabs on it, we can seriously come back at that point. But again, it's to keep it under control, but be able to get matters moved quickly should we need to. That's kind of the.
And I do understand that, how long it takes to get some answers, and we need them faster, I think. Okay.
All right, so we're going to say 15,000, and then if you find a comfort level, we'll come back and do more.
Yeah, we'll just see how quickly we're spending it and
Okay.
have Tracy report back.
All right, so I'm moving to approve Resolution 1906-1708 to employ, to retain Peter Griggs on an as-needed basis, not to exceed $15,000
For zoning matters.
for zoning matters. All right, get a second on that one.
Second.
Mrs. Lenahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
Mr. Gefferle?
Yes.
All right, and I have one more thing that was handed to me. Okay. It was brought to my attention that we have a tabled resolution from February. So we looked up Robert's Rules of Order, and to withdraw the tabling of the motion, to remove it from consideration, I have to say the following. I move to remove my motion to table Resolution 1902-1913. And I have to ask the Vice Chairman who seconded the motion to table that resolution for your permission to remove the motion. So I'm motioning to remove the tabling of Resolution 1902-1913.
Have our permission, I asked about that with Mike already.
Okay, that might be why I have this. So I'm asking you, since you made the second, for your permission to remove the motion.
Move the motion to table,
To table.
meaning it's back on the table.
Right, so removing the motion to table. Yeah, you tabled it, so I am asking that you remove the motion to table it.
Okay, let's remove it.
Okay, are there any objections to removing the tabling of the resolution? Okay, so we vote on removing the table.
Correct, and what this does, it kills the motion and it kills the resolution.
So, go ahead and take a roll.
Can we talk about what it is so the audience knows what the resolution
Yes,
is?
yeah, I didn't know if we did it before or after. So, in February, there were a couple motions that were put together. One of the motions was to table a resolution. That resolution was to replace Liberty Township EMS with Delaware County EMS. And the motion was tabled. So it was never discussed, it was just tabled. I made the motion to table it. Mike seconded the motion to table it. So to untable it, we have to go through what we just did. So we'll take a vote on untable.
Mrs. Lenihan?
Yes.
Mr. Gemperline?
Yes,
Mrs. Icorn?
Yes.
so
Um,
does that mean it's dead?
So that is a dead motion.
The
It
dead
is a
motion,
dead-
therefore a dead resolution.
It's a dead
This
resolution.
killed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, so that is dead. What, is there anything wrong?
It's dead.
Okay, and now, we're going back to the, I think we have to move to go in.
Executive session.
I mean, that's all I have is new business. Any new business on your part?
Nope.
Comment, on this business or what have you, there was an accident at Rutherford Road in Millwater this last week, a bicycle accident. Wes talked about the urgency of the bike path down Rutherford. I think what would help is to lower the speed limit on Rutherford to 35 miles an hour. And that was a farm country road, 45 rated in 8 seconds. It's a populated road now. And I understand that's something that trustees cannot do. But is there anything the trustee board can do to express interest, and that is if you guys concur? Then we'd like to see that speed limit lowered to 35.
So I would love to see that speed limit lowered to 35. Rutherford Road is narrow. We have a lot of population on it now, and a lot of people pulling out of Stites onto it now. And for some reason, when that area got developed over there, no infrastructure improvements were required except a left-hand turn lane down the street to get into the development. I had hoped that with that development, the developer would have been asked to accommodate the increased traffic, and instead of having that narrow little T, would have had to do something to accommodate that traffic. That was not done. So I would love to see the speed limit reduced. We have gone to the county on speed limit reduction on Stites Road, and we get told no. So, but I think it would be worth our time to say, hey, look, somebody just got hit on their bike, they got a skull fracture. It's just too fast for how narrow it is and how many people are on it. Every time we go to ODOT, ODOT's entire goal, and I learned this when I was trying to work on a 315 subdivision and reduce the speed. The goal of ODOT is to move traffic quickly. That's their goal. So when they go and do, when you ask them to go and say, would you please see if it's justified here, all they do is, this is hysterical, all they do is measure how fast people are going, and then that's the speed limit.
They'll raise the speed limit.
Yeah, that's the speed limit they pick then. They go, oh, everybody's going 45, so that's good. So that is truly, they were just very honest about it. That's how they do it, and that's how they determine speed limits. Maybe people are going slower on Weatherford now. I don't know. And it is the county. I know I go slower on that. I don't like going 45 on that road. I feel like that's not safe. So I'm up for seeing if we can reduce that now that there's a new development and people coming out of that stop sign.
Mike, since you don't have much to do anymore, since you started, might you look into seeing if there's anything we can do?
Actually, the discussions have already been opened with our representative from the engineer's office. And just like I said, it is a concern that once the study's done, it actually could raise the speed limits in that area. But again, it's a topic of discussion, especially now that we're working through with Opal on the bike trail in that area. It's certainly something that's needed as we progress forward in that area. It is a topic that has to be approached. I'll continue those discussions and see what we can accomplish there.
Thank you. Any updates, please let me know.
Will do.
Thank you.
Can I make one comment as a biker?
Yes, sir.
So Rutherford and Stites are major road rides for all your people training for Peloton in the areas you're aware. Sawmill Parkway, Liberty Road, everybody's looping to do 20 to 30 miles in the area, and that road is, they whip down there. That and Stites need reductions.
Used to be nice until all these cars went down like a speed limit.
Yeah.
They did put a bike path on Stites in front of that development, didn't they?
There's no bike path on Stites.
On that new development? They didn't make them put a bike path up?
There might be something being dug out right now, but like I said, people are right. When you're training for Peloton, you're doing 15 to 20 miles an hour on the road. You can't be on some of the bike paths. They're not in the shape to ride on.
It should be brand new and in good shape. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. All right. I'll move to go into executive session for RC 12122G1 to consider the appointment, employment, compensation of public employees.
Second.
Mrs. Lenahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Eichhorn?
Yes.